I'm RJ Weiss, certified financial planner and founder of The Ways to Wealth. Today, we're diving into some of the most viral TikToks in the financial space. And let me be clear, this is not about tearing people down. I actually pick videos I agree with for the most part. But as someone who has spent years in the financial space, there's often a little more context I want to add to these videos that would help people make better financial decisions. Let's dive into the first video.
If I were to start over with investing, then these are the 3 things I would only invest in as a complete beginner, coming from a 36-year-old former public school teacher with a net worth of $2 to $3 million. First, I wouldn't invest in meme stocks, individual companies, IPOs, or even cryptocurrencies because it's way too volatile. Instead, I would invest in ETFs that track the S&P 500 or the top 500 companies in the United States like SPY. Here are some other alternatives that are also good too. Next, because I'm young, I would invest in ETFs that track technology companies like QQQ, which tracks the NASDAQ 100 or the top 100 technology companies in the United States. There's usually a lot of volatility in this ETF, but in the long term, there's a lot of potential for growth. Next is SCHD, which is a dividend-paying ETF. This is a little bit more on the boring side, but I do like getting consistent income every quarter. As a beginner investor, I would keep things super simple and not overcomplicate things.
So the strategy in this video is sound and overall aligns with a lot of best practices. Focusing on investing in index funds is one of the simplest ways to build your wealth slowly but surely over time. And it's an excellent way to avoid the pitfalls of trying to beat the market and failing. While specific allocation percentages weren't mentioned in this video, it's a good idea to have a good chunk of your portfolio in something like a broad-based index fund like the S&P 500. It just provides a very solid foundation for growth going forward. Some context I would add around this video is if you're already invested in the S&P 500, that means you already have a lot of diversification to tech stocks already. So investing in something that tracks tech companies is going to increase your risk pretty substantially. And then the second thing I wanted to point out, investing for growth over dividend is probably the right move for beginner investors. So beginners should focus more on growth instead of dividend income because they're not withdrawing for their portfolio. This person has a $2 to $3 million net worth, so their circumstances are a lot different than yours. Overall, love this video for its emphasis on index funds, which is something I can always get behind. Let's dive into video number 2.
If you can't pay for it in cash, in total, on the spot, cash on the barrelhead, you can't afford it, whatever it is.
So this is the clip. It's 9 seconds of Dave Ramsey saying, if you can't pay for it in cash, you can't afford it. Of course, there's some truth in the statements, but it's really more complex than this. So Dave's right in that if you can't pay cash, you probably can't afford to pay for it. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't necessarily take out a loan. So this principle really helps people who are in that debt cycle get out of debt. Let's acknowledge that. But it doesn't necessarily mean that all debt is bad. Even Dave talks about mortgage debt, which he advises putting 20% down in a home and taking out no more than a 15-year loan. What about debt like student loans, cars, or home renovations? This is where it gets a little more complex. And while it's not perfect, there's just a concept that's helpful to know called good debt versus bad debt. The idea is what you're buying with good debt appreciates in value. And if something is bought with debt that depreciates, such as a car, that is something that's bad debt. So take something like a student loan. Overall, that increases your earning capacity over time and can be considered good debt. But if you look at cars, yes, they provide a utility, but that value is always depreciating. So yes, you may need a car to get to work, but you need a reliable car, not a luxury car. Overall, I really don't agree with Dave's blanket approach here. Personal finance is highly complex and highly situational. Overall, I tend to side that debt should never be used for consumption, while it has its place in increasing your earning capacity or providing you a place to live. But even that's simple in a lot of scenarios. Let's go on to video number 3.
It's payday today, so let's budget my paycheck. I make $75,000 a year, and after taxes and deductions, my biweekly paycheck comes out to be $2,155. This week was extremely depressing because my credit card bill came in at $2,400. At this point, I started disassociating and thinking about all my poor life choices that led me to this moment. I took some money out of my savings and paid my credit card and the rest of my bills, and then I made a solemn vow to never ever eat out again, and also to never leave my house again because I clearly can't control myself. So now I have negative dollars for the next 2 weeks.
So the big thing that really caught my attention here is so many people struggle understanding their true financial picture. While they might know basic figures like rent or gross salary, a surprising number of people cannot provide key financial details. So kudos to this creator for going out there, knowing their numbers, and being honest about it. That's a huge step. And if you're unsure about your own financial numbers, you're not alone. To help you get started, I compiled some great financial resources on knowing your numbers, what numbers you should know, and I've linked to them in the description below. Check them out now.